self-defense force. That means that every man and woman, adult man and woman, is part of the self-defense force. And they basically roll in and the ones that got up, defended, caught Hamas on the fence line, took them out. They didn't penetrate, they lived. The ones that didn't get up and slept, Hamas assaulted through, came in, and took them out before they got up. Does that sound like a massacre of civilians, or does that sound like an assault on a military position? I'm not condoning killing civilians. But what I'm trying to tell you is these kibbutzes are not your typical town and village. These kibbutzes are militarized installations designed to be part of a fortified belt that has put this open air concentration camp behind the walls. And I think people should start waking up to the fact that the narrative is a little bit different than the way the Western media and the Israeli press is played. 40 beheaded children didn't happen. Are there dead children? Tragically, yes. Only because when Hamas assaulted through, you caught them sleeping, people went in the room, shut the doors. Now, Hamas has to assume that the people behind the doors were getting their helmets on, their flak jackets, and their weapons. So you spray it down, open it up, throw in a grenade, boom, typical assault procedure, which they use, by the way, on the Israeli military encampments. And they,
Ay. Ay. This is my video update from Belgrade, Serbia on this October 13th, Friday morning. Let's talk about some news. So yesterday in my video, I got the days of the week mixed up. It was Thursday and I said Tuesday, October 12th. So I apologize for that. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes I mix up Tuesday and Thursday. Actually, it happens quite often. Anyway, let's talk about what is going on in the world today. And Secretary of Defense for the United States, Mr. Lloyd Austin, he arrived in Israel to show the U.S.'s support for Israel and to discuss the next steps in what looks like is going to be a massive ground operation in the north of Gaza. Israel, they officially informed the UN yesterday to evacuate its staff and advised civilians to evacuate to the southern part of Gaza. The northern Gaza Strip must be evacuated within 24 hours. That is the statement from Israel to the United Nations. The source for this quote is the UN itself. There are over 1 million citizens in the north of Gaza. The request to evacuate is likely due to an imminent ground operation by the Israeli army. So it looks like we are going to get a massive escalation, which is about to take place. How all of this is going to work, I have no idea. 1 million plus people in the north of Gaza are now being told within 24 hours to evacuate to the south of Gaza. Meanwhile, all of Gaza is being cut off from food, water, electricity. There are reports that the hospitals are about to collapse because they can't get any medicine. They don't have water, electricity. How are they going to operate? So, I mean, we're looking at just a horrible catastrophe, a horrible humanitarian crisis that is about to unfold in the next 24 hours, probably less than 24 hours now. Israel said in the statement to the United Nations that this is about crushing Hamas. So this is where we are. And Lloyd Austin, he arrived in Israel to discuss the next steps. Anthony Blinken was in Israel yesterday. EU chief Ursula von der Crazy, she's going to be arriving in Israel soon, as is the foreign minister of Germany, Annalena 360, the foreign minister of Canada, the foreign minister of Italy, and some more EU officials. They are all expected to arrive in Kiev to virtue signal most of these people. I mean, let's be honest, let's be real. Annalena going to Israel is not about looking for any type of solution or negotiation or diplomacy or anything like that. I mean, Annalena can barely tie her shoelaces. She doesn't know how many days there are in a year. she's very bad at mathematics. So I mean, her going to Israel, sending someone like Annalena to Israel is all about coming out with more statements about escalation. Annalena's going to talk about escalation, and she's pretty much there to basically show the EU support for what is shaping up to be a very devastating and possibly a very long conflict, a long war and operation towards Gaza. So this is not about serious diplomacy. This is not about trying to find an off-ramp. When you send Ursula and Annalena and these people, this is not a serious effort for peace. It's the exact opposite of that. If you want peace, if you want to find a solution to what is taking place, then you have to send in the professional diplomats. That's not Blinken. That's not Annalena. That's not the foreign minister of Canada, Melanie Joly. It's none of these people. If you want to find a solution to this conflicts, the answer lies with BRICS. Send in the professionals. Lavrov, Wang Yi, Jaishankar, all of these people. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Send in the professional diplomats. They'll get to a solution. They will find a solution. Sending in Annalena and Ursula, it's all about escalation. It's all about more war. That's what you're going to get with their arrival to Israel. So, this conflict, I don't like to compare the conflict in Ukraine with the war in Israel, Gaza, because I think there are two very different situations, very different conflicts and wars. But there are some similarities. I can think of a couple right now. The first similarity is that you're seeing all the same collective West leaders like we saw in Kiev. You're seeing all of these people now arrive in Israel. And once again, these people are arriving in Israel not to find a solution. They're arriving in Israel to come out with statements about escalation, to some case like Annalena's case. I mean, she's probably going there to virtue signal, as is Ursula. You're dealing with people that are just, Annalena, really? Really, you're sending her to Israel to do what exactly? What is she going to accomplish? Anyway, you saw the same thing in Ukraine, where they all just flew to Kiev in order to make an appearance there and to come out with some statement which talks about escalation and more conflict. So you're seeing this happen now in Israel. Another similarity is that this conflict, this war in Israel, like the conflict in Ukraine, can be stopped. We can stop this operation into Gaza if you allow BRICS, with the UN and the UN resolution, if you allow BRICS to mediate. The U.S. has tried to mediate. This is Lavrov's point and Putin's point. The U.S. has been trying, if you want to use that word, to find peace in the Middle East, to find a solution to this conflict for 70 plus years, and they failed. The U.S. has failed. They haven't been able to find a solution. It's time to, and a solution exists, approved by the United Nations. And so if you want to find a solution and come to a peace, I believe that BRICS could possibly provide the solution. You know, if it's not working with the U.S. mediating, maybe it's time to change things up and put the mediation into the hands of more capable diplomats and more capable diplomacy, once again, based on UN resolutions. So this conflict can be prevented. This escalation can be prevented. The solution is there. It's there. But unfortunately, it's not going to happen. Just like it was in Ukraine. The solution was there. It was in Minsk 1. It was in Minsk 2. It was in getting Ukraine to say that they're not going to enter NATO. The solution was there. And the solution was actually presented in Ukraine during the first month of the conflict, during the first month of the special military operation, where the Zelensky regime signed a document to end hostilities. And in that document, they said that they would not enter NATO. This was in Turkey. And Putin had that document, and it was signed. But what happened? Boris Johnson flew to Kiev, and he told Zelensky to tear up that agreement. So, I mean, we had a solution in Ukraine as well. That was the purpose of the first month of the special military operation. There was never one Russian official, not one Russian official who said that the goal of the special military operation was to capture Ukraine in 3 days. That was Milley who said that. Milley said that, and then the entire Western media, they picked up on Milley's statement and they amplified it. And now it's become some sort of historical fact, but it's fake news. That is fake news. We know that. It's fake news. Never has Russia ever once put a timeline or a date on the special military operation. Never once. But it's my opinion, it's my analysis, and many people's analysis that have followed the conflict in Ukraine, that the purpose of the first month of the SMO, with regards to the operations that took place in and around Kiev, was to force Zelensky to sign a ceasefire, to sit at the negotiating table and sign a ceasefire where Ukraine states that they will not enter NATO. That was the purpose of it all. And when Boris Johnson blew the whole thing up, well, Russia went to plan B. They went to plan B, which is what we're seeing play out now. Plan B, plan C, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, Israel, this operation into Gaza can be stopped. It can be prevented, but we have to get it into the hands of capable diplomats, professional diplomats. And that's not going to happen. That is not going to happen at all. And another similarity is how the media is treating this conflict and how the media has treated the conflict in Ukraine, in that they forget all of the history. History is never discussed. Everything seems to have started on day zero. You know, there was an attack, and that's when everything started. No one ever talks about the history of these conflicts. In the case of Ukraine, everything started on February 22nd, 2022. And that's when it all started. No one talks about Minsk 1, Minsk 2, the Maidan coup, the overthrow of the democratically elected government. All of that stuff is forgotten. Poroshenko's war with Donbass, the death of thousands and thousands of Russians now, but Russian speakers back then, Russian-speaking Ukrainians back then in Donetsk and Lugansk. Now they are Russian citizens. No one talks about the 9 years of attacks in Donbass. No one talks about Odessa and the trade unions fire, which killed 51, 52 people, 54 people, I'm not sure, a horrific event. Everything started on February 22nd. No one talks about the context. And I say this because I was watching a video yesterday where a reporter at the EU headquarters, a reporter asked one of these EU technocrats, one of these talking heads in Brussels, asked them about the comparison between Russia and Israel and why the European Union supports Israel's attack on Gaza and why the European Union did not support Russia's attack on Ukraine. That was his question. I'm paraphrasing it, but that was pretty much what he asked the EU official. The EU official was like, well, Israel's attack is justified because it was provoked, while Russia's attack was unprovoked. So that's why the EU is taking two different positions. Basically, the EU saying that they're not being hypocrites, but they are being hypocrites because what the EU official isn't telling you and what the reporter failed to follow up, the reporter should have asked the follow-up question is, what about the history? For example, what about the history of Ukraine? How can you say this was unprovoked when we have an entire history that predates the coup, going all the way to the Maidan coup, which was a government overthrown by the Obama, Biden, White House, and the European Union. You forget about that. You forget about Odessa trade unions. You forget about Poroshenko launching the war against Donbass, which was sanctioned by Biden. Back then, Biden was vice president. He pushed Poroshenko to attack Donbass. You forget about all of that stuff. You forget about Putin's warnings. Putin was constantly warning. He was begging the collective West. We have to find a new security architecture. Please don't allow NATO, don't allow Ukraine into NATO. Putin was begging the collective West. Please don't do it. Don't force my hand. And what happened? Zelensky went to the Munich Security Conference 2 weeks before the special military operation, and Zelensky was running around the Munich Security Conference with Kamal in attendance, and Ursula, and Schultz, and Annalena 560. They were all there, and they were all talking about how Ukraine is not only going to enter NATO, but Ukraine's also going to get nuclear weapons, and they were all happy about it. So, I mean, you forget about all the context and all the history, and the Brussels official says that Russia's war was not provoked by friendly treaty. So, two very, very different conflicts and wars with two very, very different histories, but there are some similarities. And the main point that I want to get across in this video is that, God, please, the war, the conflict in Israel, and this attack on Gaza, this can be stopped. This can be stopped. But not with these diplomats, not with these people traveling to Israel. They're not going to stop it. They're going to escalate it. And Blinken, when he was in, let me get the quote, when he was in Israel the other day, just to give you an example of how what they're doing is just escalation. They're not engaged in diplomacy. They're engaged in escalation. Blinken, when he was in Israel, he said the Hamas attack on Israel is like 10/9/11, and Israel is obliged to respond forcefully to such an event. Israel is obliged to respond forcefully to such an event. It's like 10/9/11. We all know what happened after 9/11. 2 decades of nonstop war, Iraq, Afghanistan, the war on terror, censorship, the Patriot Act that was passed in the United States, surveillance, Snowden, Assange. I mean, we all know what happened after 9/11 and after the war on terror was launched by Bush Jr. And now you have Blinken saying this is like 10 9/11s, and you have many collective officials claiming that this is another Pearl Harbor moment, and we all know what happened after Pearl Harbor. So these people are not engaged in diplomacy and trying to find a solution to this conflict so that thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people don't die. They're doing the exact opposite. So that's what Blinken said just the other day when he was in Israel. Anyway, let's talk now about Ukraine for a bit. We have news that the frozen assets, the frozen funds of the Russian central bank, of the Russian government, that these frozen assets, the profits of these frozen assets are now going to be dispersed to the Zelensky regime. Zelensky, when he was in Brussels, he met with the Belgium Prime Minister, and Belgium said that they are ready to send 1.7 billion euros from frozen Russian assets to Ukraine. And Belgium has created a special fund to support Ukraine in the amount of 1.7 billion euros, which is billed from taxation of Russian assets frozen in the country. Now, it's believed that there's about $212 billion in Russian frozen assets, of which a clearinghouse in Belgium is making a profit off of from the interest of these assets. So what they're going to give to Ukraine, just to be clear, let me find the numbers here because I've bookmarked the numbers of how this is all broken down. What's going to be given to Ukraine is not actually the 212 billion. I don't even know if they have a handle as to where all this 212 billion is located. I'm not quite sure, to be honest. I don't know how this works. But this clearinghouse, I don't know how they're doing it, but they are accruing interest and profit from the frozen assets, and they're going to give over that profit to Ukraine. And I believe the total amount is 3 billion, and Belgium is going to start with 1.7 billion to go right away to the Zelensky regime. Let me find you the breakdown here. In July, a major EU clearinghouse, Belgium-based Euroclear, revealed that of the 2.28 billion it earned in the first half of 2023, it accrued more than 1.7 billion in profit from Russian frozen assets. In financial results from the first 6 months of this year, Euroclear reported a substantial growth in operating income, driven partly by higher interest earnings, including a material rise linked to the application of international sanctions on Russia. Euroclear's income, excluding Russian assets, amounted to 538 million. It is estimated that Euroclear holds 196.6 billion worth of Russian assets, the vast majority of which is owned by the country's central bank. The EU has frozen 207 billion in Russian assets and reserves since the beginning of Moscow's military operation in Ukraine. So basically, they hold 196 billion in Russian central bank assets, frozen, they're accruing interest on this clearinghouse accrues interest on these assets, which they declare as profits. If they didn't have these assets, their profits would only be 538 billion. And these Russian frozen assets, which are accruing interest, add an additional 1.7 billion in profit to this Belgian-based clearinghouse. And now it looks like the Belgian government is going to take this 1.7 billion of profits from this clearinghouse, and they're going to hand it over to the regime. That is what is going on here. And the total amount, I guess, over the past year and a half, 2 years of the freeze of these Russian assets is, what did they say, 3 billion is the total. So yeah, that is the EU are expected to create some 3 billion in windfall profits. Okay, so the total that the EU is expecting from all of this windfall profits is 3 billion. So they've given 1.7, which is what they've accrued over the last 2 years, year and a half, 2 years. And they're expecting 3 billion to be the total windfall. All right, so that's the EU trying to buy time for the Zelensky regime because, well, we know the situation with the United States. Money and weapons right now from the United States, they're earmarked for Israel. And the EU is in a panic. Zelensky traveled to Brussels because he's in a panic. He met with Stoltenberg. I'm sure he met with Ursula. He met with the government officials in Belgium. And they came up with 1.7 billion of this clearinghouse, these profits from frozen assets. Now, keep in mind that there are a ton of lawyers and a ton of financial experts who are warning the European Union not to hand over this interest, this profit, because this is going to damage the EU as an investment center, as an investment region in the future. In other words, countries, oligarchs, they're not going to want to invest in the EU, they're not going to want to park their money in the European Union out of fear that what they're doing to Russia is what they're going to eventually do to them. So this is going to damage the EU in a big way. Stick a fork in the European Union, it's cooked. It is cooked. Just like they should have never banned Russia from the SWIFT system, and all of Wall Street, they warned the Biden White House, don't ban Russia from SWIFT. If you do that, you're going to have competitors pop up. We're going to lose our ability to track the movement of money. They warned the Biden White House it's going to do irreparable damage to the United States. But the Biden White House did it, and so you have the same situation now with these profits from the Russian frozen assets. They're getting the warnings. Don't do it, but no reverse hearing. No reverse hearing. So they're going to do it, and it's going to damage the European Union. Janet Yellen, she's all for this. She came out with a statement and said that she fully supports Europe in taking the proceeds from frozen Russian assets to fund more aid for Ukraine. Well, of course the United States is for this. This is obvious. The U.S. is saying, yeah, destroy your credibility as a European Union because people are going to park their money now more with the United States. It's like the U.S. is removing a competitor, an investment competitor, a financial competitor. So yeah, of course Yellen is egging the European Union on. Yeah, do it. Do it. Do it. Take the profits from the frozen assets, give them to the Zelensky regime. Do it. And, the U.S. benefits from this. I'm telling you, man. I am telling you, these EU leaders, they are not looking out for the best interest of the European Union. That's for sure. That is for sure. And of course, a lot of this money, the Belgian Prime Minister said this money is going to be used for purchasing of weapons and for humanitarian aid and stuff like that, but purchasing of weapons. It's like saying we're going to destroy our economies in the European Union, we're going to destroy our credibility, and we're going to do that so that we can give the military-industrial complex more weapons contracts. That's basically it. Anyway, let's see here. We had, speaking about stealing money or making bad financial decisions, we have word from ABC News that the U.S. and Qatar have agreed to prevent the dispersal of recently unfrozen Iranian funds as Israel-Hamas war rages. The U.S. and Qatar have reached an agreement that the Qataris will not act on any request from Tehran for the time being to access $6 billion in Iranian funds that were unblocked as part of the prisoner swap last month. So once again, the collective West is breaking an agreement, and they're going to steal the $6 billion. Right? They're going to steal the $6 billion. It's not their $6 billion. This is Iran's money. Everyone recognizes this. It's Iran's money. And they were going to give it to Iran. But as the money is sitting in a bank in Qatar, this conflict breaks out, this war breaks out, and you have all kinds of people in the collective West saying, this was the narrative. This was the narrative a week ago as the war started. As Hamas attacked Israel, the narrative was that Iran was behind this, and Iran used the $6 billion that the Biden White House gave over to Iran in exchange for prisoners. They used that money to buy Hamas weapons. That was the narrative. And now it came out that Iran is not behind Hamas. They had no idea of what was going on. Even the New York Times, in an article they put out yesterday, they said that Iran was surprised at what Hamas had done. They were taken by surprise. That's the New York Times that said that. Not me, not Alex. The New York Times said that Iran was surprised by the Hamas attack. So it's now pretty much accepted that Iran was not behind any of this. But they're still going to take the $6 billion. They're going to take the $6 billion back. It's not theirs. They're taking back money that was stolen from Iran. Iran has given over the prisoners. Iran agreed. Iran fulfilled their side of the agreement, but the collective West is not going to fulfill their side of the agreement. And that money is now going to stay in Qatar, and eventually it will, I imagine, eventually it will come back to the United States. Or what I think is probably more likely is that the $6 billion will be forgotten, conveniently forgotten about, like say in a year or 2 or 3 years, it'll be forgotten about. And, you know, it'll be distributed to various individuals or politicians. I don't know. That would be my guess as to what's going to happen. So yeah. And like I said, the narrative that this money was used by Iran to fund Hamas it can't be correct. It doesn't make sense because it's now acknowledged that Iran was not behind this Hamas attack. And anyway, the money was sitting in a bank. So how could Iran have used that money to fund Hamas anyway? When we now know that money is in the bank in Qatar and was never given over fully to Iran. So how could that money have been used to fund Hamas? So, all right. Let's see here. What was I going to talk about before I went into this story? Budanov, the AI android intel chief of Ukraine, Budanov, said that in an interview that the big counteroffensive has failed. This is what Budanov admitted to yesterday in an interview. And he basically said that, I'm looking for the quotes here if I have it bookmarked. Budanov basically said that the super duper counteroffensive, it just didn't meet its planned timeline. It didn't go as planned. Budanov told Ukrainskaya Pravda that, what did he tell them? He said that the Ukrainian armed forces are not just behind schedule, but have completely fallen out of it. That's a direct quote. After several things did not go as smoothly as Kiev had hoped. Budanov refused to explain what falling out of schedule actually meant, stating that everyone should draw their own conclusions. Check this out. Budanov, this is an interesting statement from this interview. Budanov said that the supply of arms and other aid to the Ukrainian army could potentially be hampered by a protracted conflict in the Middle East, referring to the recent escalation between Israel and Hamas fighters in Gaza. Quote, if that conflict is limited in time to a few weeks, then in principle there is nothing to worry about. Budanov said, however, if the situation drags on, it's quite clear that there will be some problems with the fact that it will be necessary to supply weapons and ammunition not only to Ukraine, but she added, noting that the world is approaching global war pretty quickly. You know, there's one time that I've agreed with Budanov. I said the same thing a couple of days ago. I think Budanov is watching my channel. Budanov, are you watching my channel? Stop watching my channel, man. Anyway, or drop a like. Budanov, if you like this video, subscribe. Click the notification bell to make sure that you receive updates whenever I post a new video. And please drop me a like. Go to the Duran shop, Budanov. 20% off. Use the code for Duran20. I said the same thing 2 days ago. I think I even said it yesterday in my video that if the war in Israel, in Gaza, is a short conflict, then a short war, then I can see the collective West shifting back to Ukraine. But if this is a long war, and it looks like it's going to be a long war and a long operation, then Ukraine is going to be in big trouble. That's what Budanov is saying. But Budanov has also said that the big super duper counteroffensive has failed. It's failed. Here you have Budanov, who's been the biggest supporter of the big super duper counteroffensive. Remember, Budanov said he's going to be swimming and fishing in Crimea this summer. That's what he said. Now you have him saying that this has been a bust. It's been a failure. That's Budanov. So Budanov is speaking a lot of truths over the past couple of days. He revealed that Ukraine attacked the ZNPP 3 times. It wasn't Russia, it was Ukraine. Now he's admitting that the super duper counteroffensive has failed. I wonder why Budanov is starting to reveal all these truths. I wonder if he's thinking about cutting and running. I don't know. I don't know what Budanov is up to. Anyway, let's wrap up this video. I'll just wrap this thing up. Let's see here. Should we go straight into a clown world? Steve Scalise, by the way, he's dropping out of the race for House Speaker, even though the Republican establishment preferred Scalise. It looks like he won't get the votes that are needed to be House Speaker, and it looks like he will get Jim Jordan. I think Jim Jordan will get, I think he needs 217 votes. I think he will get those votes. Jim Jordan is the Freedom Caucus Republican who is against funding for Ukraine, and he is supported by Trump, endorsed by Trump. So this is bad news, actually, for the Zelensky regime. It was good news if Steve Scalise is going to be House Speaker, because Steve Scalise is all for war. He loves war. But now looks like Jim Jordan, that's not good for Ukraine. Jim Jordan does not want money and weapons going to Ukraine. So that's a setback, another setback for the Zelensky regime. And finally, we had a report from the U.S. government for Congress, which said that the U.S. must be ready for simultaneous wars with China and Russia. They have to prepare for simultaneous wars. So they have to up their production of nuclear weapons. They have to up their spending on the military-industrial complex. How much higher can it get? I have no idea. It's almost at $1 trillion now. What are they spending? 2 trillion, 3 trillion? I don't know. Keep the money printing. The money printer goes burr. You know, I mean, how much more money can they spend on the MIC anyway? That's the reports. That's the conclusion that they came up with, is that the U.S. should be ready to fight on two fronts, Russia and China. Before, the U.S. doctrine, before this report came out, the U.S. doctrine was that the U.S. should fight one of these superpowers, one of these competitors, Russia, defeat Russia, and then fight China, or vice versa. That was the doctrine. Don't take on both at the same time. But now we've had a shift, a change. Now it's take on both at the same time. It's not going to end well for the U.S. if that is the new doctrine. So let's do some clown worlds, huh? First clown world. I don't know if this is the clown world. The EU gives Zuckerberg 24 hours to address disinformation concerns. Commissioner Terry Breton has warned Meta about the alleged spread of fake news at the threat of fines. So just like the EU threatened Twitter the other day, threatened Elon Musk, it looks like they're now threatening Facebook. I don't understand why they have to threaten Facebook. Facebook is pretty much the CIA. It's like the EU is telling the CIA to censor content. Maybe it's just procedural. I don't think the EU has anything to worry about with Facebook when it comes to censorship. Facebook will not only play along with censorship, they'll outdo the European Union's Digital Services Act. I mean, they're going to one up the European Union when it comes to censorship, so I don't know why they warned Facebook there. We also have, not a clown world, maybe a pre-clown world. The IOC suspends Russian Olympic Committee. Moscow has slammed the decision, calling it double standards and segregation. Whatever, the IOC is basically saying that the Russian Olympic Committee is now banned because the Russian Olympic Committee, they included Zaporozhye, Kherson, Lugansk, and Donetsk as part of the Russian Federation, and the IOC said that they're not going to allow this, so they suspended the Russian Olympic Committee. Who cares about the Olympics? We're going to have the Olympics next year in Paris, and no one is even talking about it, the Summer Games. Is anyone talking about it? No. No one even cares anymore. I'm calling it that. The Olympics, stick a fork in it. We need a new international sporting event. And I'm saying that as a Greek. I'm saying that as a Greek Olympic event. And we have Guy Verhofstadt. Now we're entering clown world territory. He put out this tweet. While Parliament and Council discuss geopolitical threats to Europe, Orban's off to China to meet with Putin. When does populism become treason? When will the EU hashtag EU code finally follow up Article 7 and ban Orban from EU decision making? Hashtag ban Orban. Because Orban is going for the One Belt and Road Summit, which is taking place in China. Orban's going to be the only collective West leader to attend this event, and Putin's going to also be there, and so they might talk. Oh no, they might talk and meet. God forbid. God forbid you have a leader of one country meeting and talking with the leader of another country, and possibly they can discuss negotiations, ceasefire, peace, cooperation. God forbid. God forbid that happens. And so Guy Verhofstadt, he's all pissed off about this. Anyway, yeah, they want Hungary out, or actually they want Hungary to remain in the European Union. But they want Hungary inside the European Union without any of the rights of a full EU member. That's what they want. So they can continue to, so they can make an example of Hungary. They want to keep Hungary in, but they want to abuse Hungary. Anyway, in a final clown world, let me show you. Beautiful fountain at this beautiful park. And a final clown world is coming from the hill. And this should come as no surprise to anybody that there are neocons and media in the collective West that are blaming Russia for the war that is taking place in Israel and in Gaza. It's coming from the hill. Putin's fingerprints are all over the attacks. Yeah. Putin's fault. All Putin's fault. Basically, they're saying that a second front has opened up, and the second front is in Putin's benefit. That's what they're basically saying. But Putin must have anything, right? They can't accept any responsibility or accountability. It's all Putin's fault. Anyway. I think this should be a surprise to anybody, even though the Israeli ambassador in Moscow, he came out with a statement yesterday and he said that Russia has absolutely nothing to do with this. Russia can deliver a solution. Russia can mediate and provide a solution. That's without a doubt. Lavrov can do it. Lavrov is the exact diplomat we need at this moment in time to sit down with both parties. Russia has an excellent relationship with the Arab world, with the Palestinians, and with Israel. Russia has an excellent relationship with all parties involved. They have the professional diplomats, BRICS as well. Excellent relationship with China, Brazil, India. They can sit down and they can come up. South Africa, they come up with solutions. And they have the professional diplomats who know how to do this. They did it with Iran and Saudi Arabia. No one ever thought that would happen. But nope, they're going to say that. Even though Israeli ambassador nothing, zero, zilch, nada. Anyway, that's the video, everybody. Coming from Serbia, Telegram, Rockfin, and Twitter, X, and go to the Durant shop. I already said this when I was promoting my stuff to Budanov. Anyway, take care, everybody.
포탑을 파괴했습니다. 적 더블킬. 포탑이 파괴되었습니다. 포탑이 파괴되었습니다.
어리석긴 실컷 저주해봐라.
포탑을 파괴했습니다.
비명의 주스 따위. 영혼을 걸어가주마.
아군이 하였습니다.
이제 정신이 번쩍
제압되었습니다.
날 막을 수
포탑을 파괴했습니다. 마무리. 포탑을 파괴했습니다.
죽어도 다시 살아날지니. 실컷 빌어라. 신도 너를 구해줄 수는 없으니. 죽은 몸뚱이구나. 내가 돌아오면 저들은 끝이다. 모든 영혼을
트리플 킬. 마무리. 아군이 당했습니다.
가 되어라.
포탑을 파괴했습니다.
허약한 육신을 벗고
적의 억제기를 파괴했습니다.
안식을 얻으리라. 내 감철 주먹으로 산자를 필면의 공포로 이 몰락의 밤을 비춰주리.
이것
처치했습니다.
나약한 영혼들과 산산조각 내주마.
적에게 당했습니다.
내 의지가 강철에 다시 깃들었다. 올라서 주마.
아군이 당했습니다. 포탑을 파괴했습니다. 적이 학살 중입니다. 제압되었습니다.
그런 게
모두 두려움에
적의 억제기가 곧 재생성됩니다. 포탑을 파괴했습니다.
이게가 숨짓하는구나.
적이 미쳐 날뛰고 있습니다.
산자의 소음과 죽은 자의 침묵 모두 내가 지배한다. 생명을 멸한다. 육신의 속박은 강철로 해방한다. 일어나는 뭐
적을 도저히 막을 수 없습니다. 아군을 당했습니다. 더블킬. 포탑이 파괴되었습니다. 적 더블킬. 적이 전장을 지배하고 있습니다. 포탑이 파괴되었습니다. 제압되었습니다. 제압되었습니다. 억제기가 파괴되었습니다.
비명의 족쇄 따위 정말 받아들여라.
아군이 당했습니다.
약자는 죽음을 두려워하지.
제압되었습니다. 포탑이 파괴되었습니다. 적을 처치했습니다.
시스템이 끝났어.
죽음은 날 막을 수 없지.
포탑이 파괴되었습니다. 포탑이 파괴되었습니다.
발밑에 조합은 상관없다.
억제기가 곧 재생산됩니다. 적을 처치했습니다.
이렇게 사육은 시작된다.
아군이 당했습니다. 적을 처치했습니다.
몸을 숨기는 겁쟁이들. 내가 영원한 어둠을 선사해주마.
적이 미쳐 날뛰고 있습니다. 제압되었습니다.
해결해야 돼.
제압되었습니다.
곧 자위건을 먼지처럼 하찮은 존재다. 그저 시들어 사라질 뿐.
더블킬. 아군이 당했습니다.
내 의지가 강철에 다시 깃들었다. 거두주마.
더블킬. 마무리. 포탑을 파괴했습니다. 포탑을 파괴했습니다. 소환사 한 명이 게임을 끝냈습니다.
There were so many questions about the Ahsoka series for Disney Star Wars leading up to its release, but maybe the biggest and most important one of all would be, will anyone tune in? Will anyone actually show up to watch this from Lucasfilm, considering all the failures we've seen from Star Wars, especially when you think about Dave Filoni introducing so many of these characters that were from the animated series. Although it does have a very hardcore, dedicated group of fans when you look at something like Star Wars Rebels, it's a fraction of the general Star Wars audience. So would people actually bother to turn on their television or turn on their laptop, wherever they're going to watch it, and tune into Disney Plus? Well, after 7 weeks of Ahsoka and 8 episodes, we have an answer. Absolutely not. The Ahsoka series is a ratings disaster for Disney. You could tell from the beginning. We talked about one of the lowest premieres they've ever seen for Disney Star Wars, and we found out recently that things only continue to get worse. Ahsoka suffers weak finale viewership. Will Season 2 even happen? And this is in the aftermath of, after 5+ days, 6 days of release for the finale of the Ahsoka series, and they couldn't even crack 1 million households for Samba TV. 863,000 US households watched the finale episode of Ahsoka on Disney Plus over the first 6 days. And the reason that's an important number is because we can compare it directly to other Star Wars series, like the Obi-Wan Kenobi finale, 1.8 million. Book of Boba Fett finale, 1.5 million. Mando Season 3, Season 2 finales, both over 1 million. And Ahsoka, after 1.2 million watched the premiere, lost 30% of its audience for the finale. A miserable disaster. But still, some people are saying, you know what? One thing we got to see in this series, we got to see Hayden Christensen as Anakin Skywalker. I'm sure that's going to boost the ratings. I'm sure that'll deliver a win for Disney, right? Well, unfortunately, the Nielsen ratings, which lag a couple weeks behind when something actually comes out on streaming, have finally come out for episode 5. And Ahsoka did not get the bump that they were hoping for. In fact, once again, not even the return of Anakin Skywalker, not even that nostalgia was enough to get Ahsoka into the top 10. This is an embarrassing, pathetic failure, and it cannot be understated. Hayden Christensen coming back as Anakin, not enough to get Ahsoka in the top 10. This is their biggest streaming series that they have going on right now for Disney Plus, one of the biggest streaming services in the world, and it can't crack the top fucking 10. You have to go over to original content and find Ahsoka up to number 4. Now, when you look at the million minutes watched, it is an uptick of about 25%. But considering that this was a long episode, a 50-minute episode, it was kind of expected it would go up a little bit and potentially have some repeat viewers, things like that. But the fact that it's sitting there at 577 million minutes watched, when you compare that to, say, the 4th week of things like Boba Fett, Obi-Wan, Mando Season 3, again, it pales in comparison. Mando at almost 800 million minutes. Obi-Wan Kenobi in its 4th week of release was at 733. Even Book of Boba Fett, which had fewer episodes out by this point in time because they didn't do a 2-episode premiere, even it at 580 million minutes watched, higher than that of Ahsoka, with the return of Anakin fucking Skywalker. For the past several weeks, you've seen so many people like, well, I don't know about those Samba TV numbers. No, Samba TV numbers are very good and accurate when you compare them to other Samba TV data. Just like Nielsen, you have to compare it to other Nielsen stuff. But what this is confirmed, what the Nielsen numbers have confirmed a couple weeks after the fact, is exactly what the Samba TV numbers indicated earlier. Not only an incredibly weak premiere viewership, but it dropped off significantly over time. And even the return of a character like Hayden in the role that he had in episode 5, which, by the way, it's not like people didn't know about it. It was teased the week before. They had theatrical releases for this thing to try to get people hyped up, all this social media activity, and they couldn't get people to tune in. Can't even crack the top fucking 10 in streaming for the week. That's how bad this is for Disney and Lucasfilm. People did not care about this character. People did not tune in to Dave Filoni's Ahsoka. You know, his attempt to once again make her the center of the Star Wars universe, the Gandalf of the Star Wars universe. People weren't interested. This is a massive, catastrophic failure, even worse than people could have possibly expected. For people out there that thought Dave Filoni's going to save Star Wars, he's going to wreck out the sequel trilogy. No, he didn't do any of that. He connected even closer to the sequels, like has always been his plan this entire time. But unfortunately, so many people have walked away. So many people have tuned out. Not only did they lose a massive amount of viewers from the premiere, but even that premiere was pathetically weak. People are not tuning into Disney Star Wars. They have no hope anymore, regardless of who this product is coming from, whether it's Dave Filoni or somebody else. Let me know your thoughts about this failure in the comments section below. Smash a like button, subscribe to the channel, ring the bell for notifications, share this video out there, and I'll talk to you later.
Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel. In this short video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous night at the local time. First we're going to start with Donetsk direction. Today we have a lot of very interesting videos and details. And first we're going to start one more time with the battle for chemical plank, for the Tericon, for the landfill on the north part of this area. The Russian sources published a very powerful, very interesting video, one of the episodes of attack on this territory using the armored vehicles, tanks, armored fist. On this video we can see the first days of clashes, probably that event took place somewhere on the 10th or on the 11th of October. On this video we see how the Russian tanks were moving along the roads from Novosilovka, Drugaya to Krasnogorovka, further from Krasnogorovka in direction of the landfill in the northern part of Avdiivka. And on this video, the things that we can make few conclusions based on this video, and the most important ones are that the Russians were using really significant number of armored vehicles, up to 50 units, pieces of different type of tanks, of armored personal carriers. The Russians were using significant number of firepower, the manpower, and so on. And the most important, obviously, that during that attack we didn't saw the infantry. For example, on this scene we see at once 4 tanks attacking the hill. With the tanks, some of them were equipped just with regular like shields defense, some of them were equipped with these different anti-drone weapons and so on. So that was an attack, and according to geolocations of movement, the Russians were moving something like here, in direction from Velika Novosilovka through the fields, and then the final point of the video was somewhere in this area. And all over the road, the Russians were bombing and attacking the Ukrainian positions on the landfill. As we discussed, as a result of that attack, some sources are saying that the Ukrainians were forced to step back from the landfill. The Russians managed to clear this territory. Later we got the data that the Russians were forced to step back, and currently we have the great zone around this territory. From the Ukrainian side, we also got the video how the Ukrainians were trying to bomb and attack the Russians during their movement. But anyway, the thing that we can see and the conclusions that we can make is that total difference between the Russian attack in direction of the north of chemical plant of Avdiivka and the Ukrainians' attempts to attack in direction of Robotyne. And the main difference is the level of losses. Obviously, the Russians have losses. It's obviously we can't say that the Russians haven't lost even a single tank or something like this. Yes, the Russians are losing equipment because this offensive operation. But if you compare this operation with the Robotyne offensive Ukrainian operation, of course, the Ukrainians had maybe 10 times more losses, destroyed vehicles, and so every single tank that entered Robotyne fields was destroyed. But when talking the Russians, just maybe 10% of armored vehicles were destroyed as a result of counter-artillery fire. Also, we don't see the usage of FPV drones from the Ukrainian side, Lancet drones, and this is a very big minus for the Ukrainian defense forces. They don't have enough of tools to attack the Russian armored vehicles. The only tool they have is probably artillery forces, but artillery is not accurate type of weapon, and sometimes it's not so effective against the Russian forces. Interesting updates are coming from the line between Novobakhmutovka and Verkhnitaretska. Basically, if you remember a few days ago, as a result of some attack or some operation, the Ukrainians managed to destroy the bridge that connects Panteleymonivka and Novaka. The bridge was destroyed. That bridge was the main logistic artery or pipeline for the Russian forces. Currently, this bridge is destroyed. There is no traffic. Obviously, the Russian engineers try to solve the issue by building some pontoon bridges, but currently the Russians are forced to use their forces, their logistic, just using one settlement. The settlement by the name of Verkhnitaretska. Every single movement currently, every single redeployment, attack, supply and support goes exactly through this area. And currently this is the most well-concentrated area of Russian forces. And the Ukrainians understand this well. And today the Ukrainians published another video on how they were bombing and attacking the concentration of Russian forces in the city using FPV drones and so on. So this is exactly this case, this tactic and this let's say this scenario is very useful for the Ukrainians. And we can say that as a result, as the battle for Avdiivka, this is a small victory of the Ukrainian forces. It's a very smart step. They forced the Russians to concentrate their activity and logistics just through one city, and of course this gives the Ukrainians significant benefits and possibilities to concentrate their very small FPV drone army and artillery ram exactly in this area, which increased the losses of Russian forces. Furthermore, the Ukrainians continue concentration of their forces in the vicinity of Keramik, Novokalinova, Alexandrovka, Panteleymonivka, in this area, Yurivka. They try to concentrate forces and with one purpose, to counterattack the Russians in their flanks, in their back, and to force them to step back, or at least to slow down their offensive operation in the vicinity of the chemical plant. The Russians, of course, do have some forces in this area, and furthermore, the Russians control currently the situation. The Russians published the video on how they were bombing and attacking the Ukrainian forces using FPV drones, using grenades. We see the concentration of Ukrainian forces, and they just try to pin them down, try to control the situation, and not to allow the Ukrainians to attack them in their back while the Russians are moving in the direction of Avdiivka. Because if the Russians miss this attack, they may appear in a cauldron and might be encircled in this area. So this is a very important area that the Russians need to keep control over. Interesting updates are coming from the south in direction from Krasnogorovka. Today the Russian sources published another video on how they managed to probably establish control over another checkpoint and stronghold of the Ukrainians in direction of Marinka, Georgievka, and Krasnogorovka. As a result of artillery strikes, as a result of 500 strikes, the Russians managed to destroy another fire position and of Ukrainian forces, and probably later the Russians established control. This might be a part of Russian operation. And during October, the Russians have already established control over the tree lines in this area, and that was probably the next step of the Russian forces. But without any big full-scale offensive, just the situation to develop the foothold on the north of Marinka and to improve own positions. When talking about, there were no more updates about Donetsk. Of course, I have a strange fear. I feel this weird feeling about Avdiivka. Obviously, everybody has, because we expect more videos, we expect more details from this area, we expect more flashes, we expect finally some results from Berdichi, Sipov, and Tunika, and Severna, but yet we haven't received nothing. The question is how long the Russians are able to support this level of pressure. It's very difficult operation, and no matter the scenes with significant number of armored vehicles, sooner or later armored vehicles will be ended and the Ukrainians will be able to start counter-offensive operation. The situation is really weird, so we need to wait, obviously. I expect and I believe that soon we're going to receive more updates from this territory, more progress on being captured settlements, but for now we need just to keep waiting. When talking about Novomikhailivka, the Russians continue storming the city. After a few days of clashes, the Russians managed to discover the fire positions, they came ammo depots, and during the previous 24 hours they continue, let's say, reducing and destroying the discovered positions. And for example, in this video we see the results of strike of Russian self-guided missile, Lumur probably, within a distance of more than 15 kilometers. Very accurate strike. In the result of the strike, another position of Ukrainian forces in the central part of Novomikhailivka was destroyed. But no video or no locations regarding any attempts to attack the city on the ground. Updates are coming also from Robotyne-Verbovo area, and on this area we also see the Russian concentration, the Russian activity. The Ukrainians currently are completely focused on Kopany. It's very far from Robotina Verbova fields. Probably the Ukrainians took a decision even to change their plans and to stop any activity in this area, and probably the Ukrainians in time will be forced to step back from Robotina Verbova, and they will try to concentrate their attacks to closer targets like Instiganka and Popin, and they have already started. From the other side, we see the Russian activity in the area between Verbova and Novopakrovka. On this direction, the Russians continue bombing and attacking the Ukrainian forces who are moving and running and heading from one position to another along the tree lines. And on this video, for example, we'll see how the Ukrainian stormtroopers or sabotage group was moving along the tree lines. The Russians discovered them with a drone with night vision equipment, and as a result of bombings, that entire group was destroyed or at least trashed and forced to step back. And this is very important area. This is very important area because this is not the only video from this area during the previous 2 weeks. The Russians are pretty concentrated in this area, and something tells me that if the Russians continue the same way, if the Russians continue their concentration of fire the same way, obviously sooner or later they will be able to establish control over the entire territory and cut the Ukrainian forces in Robotina Verbova. If we increase the number of updates, we're going to see that on this area exactly we see a significant number of updates, and we see the Russian concentration of fire, and like as a possible improvement might be like this one. The Russians need to establish control over just a few tree lines to the east, and this situation will completely change the entire configuration of the front line, and this is going to be another news, but it's going to be not Avdiivka news, but it's going to be Robotina Verbova news, and the Ukrainians will be forced automatically step back from this direction as well. Some of these are coming received from Kupiansk-Liman front line, just a few videos that we need to use for geolocation purposes. For example, the Russians will publish the video how they managed to discover and destroy another Ukrainian artillery system. There are very heavy clashes on this direction, but yet we don't see any progress on the ground, and we are able to adjust the map just based on some videos of geolocations. And one of these videos that can help us to adjust the front line arrived from Liman direction, and I have already adjusted this video. The Russian sources published the video how they were bombing and attacking the Ukrainian forces using cross tower systems in the vicinity of Liman. So basically on this video we can see that the Russians haven't managed to move very far from the city, from this village Liman. They control just the village and the forest that's located on the south of Liman, and around it, and the forest that surround Liman, at least from the south, southwest, and southeast, is under complete Ukrainian control, which give us understanding of the movement, and that there is still a lot of job to do if the Russians want to continue offensive operation in the Russian Kupiansk. I believe that just to fight for this part of the forest, the Russians need around a month or even more, maybe 2 or 3 months with the same speed. Furthermore, we got some more videos and more details regarding the support and supply that's of military aid, that military help, that military rounds that North Korea sends to Russia. Significant number of ships, significant number of railway trains are moving from North Korea to Russia. Probably the current offensive operation of Avdiivka is the result of operation of North Korea and Russian Federation. So the entire Avdiivka offensive operation was supported by North Korean rounds and let's say munition. Of course, not like 100%, but obviously this help gave the Russians complete superiority over the Ukrainian forces, and obviously this will lead sooner or later to significant victory and complete collapse of the Ukrainians on that direction. And that's it for today. Military Summary channel reminds you to condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel. Put your likes, share my picture, and have a good day. Bye bye.
모든 영혼을 거둬가 주마. 약자는 죽음을 두려워하지만 강자는 죽음을 휘두르지.
아군이 당했습니다.
죽음을 내려 자연의 선물을 지켜주마. 죽음은 지치는 법이 없지.
적을 처치했습니다. 더블킬.
사육은 시작됩니다. 영원을 향해 전쟁하리라.
적에게 당했습니다.
족쇄 따위. 거짓은 적 앞에 눈먼 어린 양들이여. 내가 올바른 길로 인도해주마.
적을 처치했습니다.
이 필멸의 육신에서 풍기는 썩은 악취. 몸뚱이구나.
아군이 당했습니다.
내 강철 주먹으로 산자를 평정해주마. 이게가 손짓하는구나. 육신의 미련을 버리지 못한 한심하고도 나약한 인물이다.
아군이 당했습니다. 적이 미쳐 날뛰고 있습니다.
내 의지가 강철에 다시 깃들었다.
포탑 방패가 곧 소멸됩니다.
필멸의 육신에 갇혀
제압되었습니다.
고통받던 이 몸은 이제 강철의 화신으로 거듭났다. 피할 수 없다. 삶은 피할 수 없는 수치일 뿐.
적을 처치했습니다.
약속하마.
도저히 막을 수 없습니다. 제압되었습니다. 아군이 당했습니다. 적을 처치했습니다. 포탑이 파괴되었습니다.
필멸의 존재는 내일을 두려워하지만 난 영혼을 설계한다. 생명은 순간이지만 나는
적에게 당했습니다. 제압되었습니다.
죽음은 날 막을 수 없지. 죽어도 다시 살아날지니. 물날의 밤이 포식.
포탑이 파괴되었습니다.
배은망덕한 자에겐 군이요 현자에겐 군주일지니.
포탑을 파괴했습니다.
이 순간에
적을 처치했습니다.
산자의
제압되었습니다.
모두 내가 지배한다. 난 죽은 자를 지배하지. 산자
포탑을 파괴했습니다. 공격받고 있습니다. 제압되었습니다.
육신의 속박은 강철로 해방한다. 실컷 신도 너를 구해줄 수는 없으니 거짓된 목적 앞에 눈먼 어린 양들이여, 내가 올바른 길로 인도해 주마. 자격이 있는 자는 모락의 밤과 맞추게 되리라. 내가 돌아오면 저들은 끝이다. 절망하라.
아군이 당했습니다. 아군이 당했습니다. 적을 처치했습니다. 더블킬. 트리플킬.
모든 영혼이 나를 섬기리니
포탑을 파괴했습니다. 포탑을 파괴했습니다. 도저히 막을 수 없습니다.
그 하찮은 영혼을 곱게 갈아주마.
포탑을 파괴했습니다.
맞이해라.
전장의 지배자. 적을 처치했습니다. 적의 업체계를 파괴했습니다. 포탑을 파괴했습니다. 적의 업체계를 파괴했습니다. 포탑을 파괴했습니다. 전장의 화신 적을 처치했습니다. 승리.
Has been simmering. And I had been seeing some things from various people that the resistance was preparing for some kind of an attack. Now, I think everyone was surprised with the level of attack that they were managed to pull off. But I wasn't surprised this happened. Again, I was surprised how much damage they were able to do, how much they were able to infiltrate Israel. But I wasn't surprised that it happened. Again, this was bound to happen. You have 2 million people in Gaza that are living in, what people like Noam Chomsky have called the largest open-air prison on earth. They're living on barely subsistent food, and the Israelis guarantee that, right? They calculated how many calories were necessary to feed the people of Gaza, and guaranteed that there was actually less than that per day allowed in to Gaza. They have destroyed water springs that people in Gaza drink from, destroyed agriculture. I mean, they've basically been starving these people out for years now. This was not going to last. This was not going to last without some sort of response from the Palestinians, and now we've seen it. I mean, the sad thing is that most people, particularly in the West, don't have that background, and so they are shocked, and they think somehow, again, oh, wow, this was unprovoked. Why did this happen? And of course, we know this was provoked, and it was provoked through years of abuses of these people. And so here we are.
Bibi Netanyahu, did he try any solution for the problems that we are facing right now in that region? What is the role of his administration in the whole situation, in your opinion?
I know he didn't try anything. He hasn't even spoken to the leadership of the Palestinians since 2014. He's not interested in dialogue. He's not interested in deals. He's not interested in doing things to maybe take the temperature down amongst people in Palestine. His goal is to wipe those people out, ideally to ethnically cleanse them, but I think he's willing to just destroy them. And we're seeing that now. I mean, we're seeing statements from his administration that sound genocidal, calling the people in Gaza animals that need to be treated as such, now indiscriminately attacking Gaza, which is a very densely populated area. You saw that Netanyahu told the people to flee, told them, in fact, to flee through the Ramallah Gate. Is that the name of it, in Egypt? And then he bombed that area. So this is a genocidal war. And I've been saying that for years. This isn't just an apartheid state. This is a genocidal state. And so Netanyahu, again, he just wants to rid what used to be Palestine of all Palestinians. That's the goal here.
Why we are right now in this messy situation in Ukraine, in Israel? Why these international institutions are not working? What's their function? What's their duty? They were designed to solve these situations, these crucial disagreements between nations. What's the problem with these international institutions?
Well, I think the problem is that, in particular, the United States has intentionally undermined those institutions, has intentionally crippled those institutions so that they don't work. In fact, you saw that Russian Foreign Minister Lavrov has announced what Russia and other countries have wanted for a while, and that is to simply go back to the functioning of the UN Charter, which, main task after World War II, it was created to prevent the scourge of war. But the U.S. has wanted to go to war. Even though the U.S. signed on to the UN Charter, even helped draft it in San Francisco, the U.S. was one of the main factors in it being undermined fatally before the ink on it was even dry. And that was in the form of the war in Korea. And then you had the war in Vietnam. And, that doesn't even get into all the coups the U.S. supported, including the coup in Guatemala in 1954, which the Secretary General at that time said was the greatest blow to the United Nations up to that point. And you can just go on and on. Another big, watershed moment was NATO's bombing of Serbia without Security Council approval. And it was done by NATO, and in particular by the U.S., to prove that the U.S. and NATO could go to war without Security Council authorization, even though that's illegal. But they wanted to make a point they could do it if they wanted to. And they did, and they have ever since. So there's no accident that the UN is not functioning as it should, because the U.S. doesn't want it to. It wants the world's, police bodies, including the International Criminal Court, to work against everyone else, but not against the United States. It does not want to be held accountable to those institutions. You can't have a rule of law where the most powerful nation on earth is not subject to that law. That is not a legal framework. That is a framework of anarchy, and that's what the U.S. has created.
What would be the first step to make some movement, some agreement between these Palestinians and Israelis? What's the main issue here?
Well, the main issue is that Israel's occupying a land that isn't theirs, that they stole through violence, through murder, through rape in the Nakba of 1948, and have ruled very violently since then, and really especially since 1967. As you know, there were the Oslo Accords, which Yasser Arafat signed with Israel, which would have guaranteed a two-state solution. But Israel acted in ways which prevented any two-state solution from happening, and really preventing any two-state solution from even being possible now. Honestly, I think most of the world, at least the world that is sympathetic with the Palestinians, believes the only solution now is a one-state solution, a multi-ethnic, multi-religious, pluralistic state in which Israelis and Palestinians and Arabs and others would live, with everyone having one person, one vote. You cannot have a racially and religious state like Israel that is only for one religion and everyone else is subservient. And nowhere else in the world do we accept that, right? We don't believe in theocracies. We think that's antithetical to democracy, even though Israel calls itself a democracy. Well, it's obviously not. It's a democracy the way, the Greek democracy was a democracy for, non-slave and landholding people, right? And Israel's a democracy for Jews and no one else. Well, that's not a democracy. And, the two-state solution may have been possible at one point. It's not possible anymore. So I think there has to be a one-state solution, multi-ethnic, multi-religious, democratic. Now, will the Israelis agree to that? No, I don't think so. Not in the short or medium term. Maybe somewhere down the road, but that will be the solution.
How do you see the future of U.S. foreign policy in Israel? Are they going to take it more serious and go after negotiation and maybe two-state solution and find something out of this, just to get out of this conflict? It's so violent.
Well, at this moment, the leadership of both parties are in agreement that they want to support Israel to the bitter end. You saw Nikki Haley, right, who's running for president as a Republican, who was Trump's ambassador to the United Nations, the highest diplomatic position we have, saying that Israel should just wipe out the Palestinians. You saw that, right? She said that, I think, today.
Finish them. She said,
finish them. We had another phrase for that Hitler had called the final solution, and that was for the Jews, but this is for the Palestinians. That is genocidal talk. And unfortunately, Nikki Haley simply said out loud, the silent part out loud, that many leaders of the United States believe and support. And that is ultimately just to get rid of the Palestinian summit. That is a sad truth. Now, the good news is that the population of the U.S. and the West in general have really shifted their opinion about Israel and Palestine in the last really couple of years, since the Israeli assault on Gaza. When was that? Was it a year ago, 2 years ago, when they killed, 53 children? And even the New York Times had a picture of all 53 children in the New York Times. Took up a whole, at least, page, I think. Well, you've never seen such a thing before in the New York Times. I think that there's a shift in the West amongst the population that's more sympathetic to Palestine. And you see major demonstrations on the streets of the United States now and in Europe in support of Palestine. We had one here in Pittsburgh. It wasn't so big, but we're a small city. But I saw videos of very big demonstrations in New York, Chicago, I believe Toronto, Montreal. My hope is that will change, or at least put some limits on U.S. policy towards Israel and on Israel itself. And it's the only thing that can, really. I mean, we really do need that sort of activism.
So we have some kind of division in Israel. They were protesting against Netanyahu. Is it going to bring any change in the foreign policy?
I'm not sure, because those protests were not against Netanyahu's Palestinian policies. It was against changes in the legal system, which would give more power to the executive branch and give less power to the courts. So is it more of a question of internal democracy, again, for the Israelis, than it was about Israel's treatment of the Palestinians? Now, that's not to say there isn't some dissent over that in Israel. There is some, but there's not a lot. There used to be more. The problem is that Israel only exists by continued immigration of people from outside Israel into Israel. And it's become self-selective, of course. As Israel's become more right-wing, the people who come to Israel and stay in Israel are more right-wing. The leftists have left, right? There used to be socialist Zionism, labor Zionism. You had the kibbutz that were even communist. There still is a communist party in Israel. They put out a good statement against Israeli aggression, but they're tiny. There's not much of a left in Israel. It continues to move farther and farther to the right, and very, in short order, the only people who remain, the only people who are going to want to live there are people who are right-wing. That's the sad truth of it. And of course, that's demonstrated by the fact that Netanyahu's now been the leader of Israel for 20-some years. I mean, Israel's only been in existence for how long? 80 years? Not even. So, he's been the leader for over, about a quarter of Israel's existence. What does that say about the Israeli population that voted for him, right? In fact, I had a disagreement with a friend of mine who I used to work with, good guy, real Zionist, and he used to try to kind of hate him and Han if he criticized Israel. So he go, well, that's not Israel, that's Netanyahu. But again, when a guy's been elected for 20-some years, that becomes reflective of the Israeli society. This is not a one-off thing. And frankly, there's even worse people than him waiting to replace him. So, I don't see a lot of dissent, enough dissent within Israel to make a difference, sadly. But I think where you're going to see the shift is in less interest of people from the U.S. and Europe in moving to Israel, right? I think younger people are losing interest in Israel, are becoming disillusioned with Israel, and that's going to undermine Israel. I mean, they need young people to continue to immigrate, and that may slow down. I do think that there is a real growing opposition in the Jewish community in the West, growing opposition to what Israel has become.
China and Russia, after this conflict started, they were talking about the first step going to be the acceptance of the statehood of Palestine. Do you see any will in the West to go after that?
Well, the West could do it. Look, there's one country that will guarantee that happening. That is the United States. The U.S. is the sponsor of Israel. We send them $4 billion a year. Without that, Israel, they couldn't defend themselves. They depend on the largesse of the United States to exist. If the U.S. said Israel, you got to recognize the Palestinian state. They have to do it. But the U.S., again, under the current leadership, would not do that. Well, we know that Biden has doubled down on Israel. Trump was very aggressively pro-Israel. Remember, he was the one that recognized Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. It was very provocative. The Palestinians used their capital. The Al-Aqsa Mosque, which is one of the, I understand, some argue the most important holy sites in the world for Muslims, is in Jerusalem. Of course, the Israelis attack that mosque all the time. Would like to level that mosque. And Biden has not countermanded Trump's recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. The U.S. position on Israel has gotten worse, not better. But if the U.S. were to have a change in policy, it could enforce that change upon Israel.
Zelensky said that Russia is behind this attack of Hamas on Israel. Do you see any logic behind his idea and this issue?
No.
Why
absolutely not? Well, because they want to blame Russia for everything. I mean, because if they blame Russia and people believe it, that will undermine the credibility of the Palestinians, right? Anyone they want to discredit, they claim is a flute, up at a flute. And they say that about people in the U.S., right? The irony of ironies, of course, is some of the weapons that Hamas got was not from Russia, it was from Ukraine. They were weapons the U.S. sent to Ukraine, and they turn around and sold them to Hamas. Not because they support Hamas, but because they'll sell them to the highest bidder. That's the irony here. But that's because of corruption, not out of any commitment there. But that's the truth. Russia was not significant in this happening. Except to this extent, I do think that Russia's special military operations in Ukraine, which again, we know what's happening in Ukraine is really a war between NATO and Russia. The fact that Russia is willing to take on NATO in Ukraine, I do think has given inspiration to resistance movements, like the Palestinian resistance movement. But that's an indirect thing. That's not, Russia directly supporting what's happening. And in fact, if you look at Russia's statements in response to what's happening, they're calling on both sides to stop the violence, and they want to negotiate a solution. They're not doubling down on support for Hamas at all, and they have good relations with Israel. That's the other point. Russia has a very good relationship with Israel, and Israel wants good relations with Russia. Israel has been unwilling to go, all the way into Russia in the way that the U.S. actually wanted it to after the special military operations began, because Israel and Russia actually get along pretty well. So, and of course, there's many Russian immigrants who live in Israel.
John Kirby said that he sees no corruption in Ukraine. Now these weapons that are coming from Ukraine to Hamas, they're using American weapons against Israel. If there is no corruption, how these weapons ended up in Palestine?
Well, they can't justify it. Of course it is because of corruption. And anyone who's honest knows Ukraine is corrupt. It's the most corrupt country in Europe. It has been for a long time. I actually addressed the United Nations on this very subject last November. And I relied on mainstream U.S. sources to say that we know that Ukraine is corrupt. And we know that they are going to sell arms to other countries, and had been even by that time. Remember, the president of Nigeria, even by that time, it said that weapons bound for Ukraine ended up in the hands of terrorists in Africa. This isn't a secret. And again, this continues to show the failure of U.S. foreign policy, even on its own terms, right? Even if U.S. foreign policy does what it's, even if you take the U.S. at its word, what its foreign policy is about, it's failing on that basis, right? Given that, and again, the American people, they seem to be fooled for a little bit, but now the polls show that the majority of American people are against further military assistance to Ukraine. So again, the population of the U.S. is actually not bad on most of these issues. They figure it out soon enough. But the government doesn't care what the people think. That's that part.
Political Republican article says that fighting against the USSR, Soviet Union, in World War II doesn't make you a Nazi. Where does this hatred come from against Russia?
Yeah, well, but that's been true for a long, long time. That was true during World War II, right? I mean, there were many in the U.S. that wanted Hitler to destroy the Soviet Union, right? And, we delayed starting a Western Front for years, hoping that would happen, right? The Soviet Union was invaded in 1941. D-Day, right, which opened up the Western Front, didn't happen until 1944. That wasn't by accident. And Stalin, of course, wanted to work with the UK and Britain even in the late 30s to go after Hitler. They rejected him. That's why they ended up making the pact with Germany, not because they wanted to, but because they knew that they'd be invaded and wanted to buy some time to rearm, right? That is the truth. And then when World War II was over, the US and UK quickly worked with fascists in Ukraine to try to undermine the Soviet Union. In Greece, even helped restore fascism in Greece because they didn't want the communists to come to power there. And as you know, the US had Operation Paperclip, in which it brought 1,100 Nazi scientists to the United States to help with our rocket program and our space program. So this is not new. Now you say, well, where does this anti-Russian sentiment come from? I mean, it's very deep-seated. Certainly can go back to Napoleon. There's a new movie coming out about it. We'll see how they deal with it. Napoleon invaded Russia, of course, was defeated ultimately in Moscow. The Muscovites setting the whole city on fire, of course. There's been anti-Russian sentiment for a long time. Russia, since Peter the Great, wanted to be part of Europe. But the truth is Europe never wanted Russia to be part of Europe, and the U.S. never wanted Russia to be part of the West. And that's a sad fact, but that's true. There were some moments where that could have happened. I think under John F. Kennedy, of course, he was murdered in part because he wanted to make peace with the Russians. There was, of course, some hope when the Soviet Union collapsed that would happen. If the friendship between Russia and the U.S. and the West, and there was for a short time, at least as long as Yeltsin allowed Russia to be raped by the West. But when that ended, that friendship ended too. And the Russians, it's taken a while, but they finally realized that the West hates them. I mean, it's a terrible truth, but it's the truth. And now they're totally rewriting the history of World War II. They're trying to downplay or even deny the Soviet Union's role in defeating the Nazis, even though the Soviet Union did more than any country, by far, to defeat the Nazis. And lost, I saw the latest count, they think maybe 34 million people trying to do it. And it's disgusting how that history is being rewritten, and that's why we really have to defend that history, the true history of what happened.
I think it's the reason for the Biden administration advocating the continuation of the war.
Well, we certainly know that the geopolitical reason for it is to try to undermine Russia, but that really hasn't worked, right? So now I do think it's becoming more political for the reason you say. Now I think Biden's afraid that if the war ended, and if the war did end now, Russia would be the victor. I think that Biden would think that would undermine his chances to win in 2024. So for that reason, I do think that Biden now desperately wants to keep the war on ice, to keep it going somehow. Even if it's a frozen conflict, and you've heard that term being used by some in order to guarantee his victory in 2024, which I don't think it will. By the way, I don't think that's going to help him. I think that's a miscalculation on his part. truthfully, if he was instrumental in making a peace deal between Russia and Ukraine, I think that would help him more, given where the American people are at on this. But I think Biden is miscalculating that, and he believes he has to keep the war going to win.
There's some rumors that the Democratic Party is looking after replacing Biden at the convention with somebody like Gavin Newsom. Is that real in your opinion, or is it some fiction?
I think it has to be real. First of all, Biden could be dead by the time of the convention. I mean, he's not healthy. Everyone knows he's not healthy. Anyone who says he's healthy is lying or is delusional. His ability to debate Trump is nil. Can you imagine a debate between Trump and him? It would be a bloodbath. I think they're going to have to replace him. And I think what they're going to do is make sure he wins the primaries by basically guaranteeing no one will run against him, which is already happening. His main competitor, Robert Kennedy, just left the Democratic Party because he said that the game had been rigged against him, which was true. So they're going to guarantee Biden wins, and then they're going to replace him. I do think that's probably true. I don't see what else they could do. How could they run a virtual corpse as president in 2024? I don't think they can do it.
Because it seems that there are two options, at least as we know, because it's Kamala Harris and Gavin Newsom. Kamala Harris, to me, it doesn't seem that she's going to be a good option for the Democratic Party.
No, obviously not. Her poll numbers are very low. She seems to have lost the ability to speak articulately. I mean, if you watch the videos, people don't have confidence in her, so she's not a real possibility. They keep saying Gavin Newsom, but look at his state; it's a disaster. His cities have collapsed. Some of the greatest cities on earth, like San Francisco, Los Angeles, they're a disaster. Hamilton to run for president on that backward. So I don't think they have any very good options. If Gavin Newsom is the best person they have, they're in deep trouble.
How about RFK Jr.? We had a lot of hope about him, and we thought that they're going to accept him at least to try his chance in the Democratic Party, but they didn't let him in.
No, but I think he'll do well as an independent. I think, he has a lot of promise. He has the best name in U.S. political history, that's for sure. And he's an intelligent guy, and he wants to make peace. People are supportive of. So I certainly think he's going to give them a good run for the money, that's for sure.
Is this administration willing to go after negotiations before 2024, or they're going to hand it over to the next administration?
Yeah, I think they're going to kick the can down the road. That's what they like to do. Though, truthfully, Lyndon Johnson did try to settle the Vietnam conflict before the 1968 election. In fact, he thought he could win if he could do that. And we know now that Henry Kissinger, was working both sides of the fence and undermined the negotiations that Johnson was working on. So there's actually some precedent for trying to negotiate the end of a war before a major presidential election. But I don't see this administration. I think they're going to kick it down the road.
Do you think that these changes that are happening in Israel are going to shift the focus of the U.S. from Ukraine to Israel? And how that can affect the war in Ukraine?
Yeah, I think it will. I think this is actually Zelensky's worst nightmare. I don't see how it's possible to keep the American public, interested in all these different fronts. At the same time, the conflict could end quickly too between Israel and Palestine. So we don't know. But if it lasts for some time, yeah, I do think it will undermine the Ukrainian effort. Yeah, absolutely.
적이 학살 중입니다.
비밀의 족쇄 따위
포탑을 파괴했습니다. 적을 처치했습니다. 적이 미쳐 날뛰고 있습니다. 아군이 당했습니다.
내 의지가 강철에 다시켜 모든 지배하지. 산자도 머지 않았다.
적을 처치했습니다. 아군이 당했습니다. 더블킬. 곧 포탑 방패가 사라집니다. 미쳐 날뛰고 있습니다. 제압되었습니다.
몰락의 밤이 포식하리라. 내가 돌아오면 적은 끝이다.
날뛰고 있습니다.
영원히 약속하마.
포탑을 파괴했습니다. 적을 처치했습니다.
이 필멸의 육신에서 풍기는 썩은 악취.
포탑을 파괴했습니다.
자격이 있는 자는 몰락의 밤과 입맞추게 되리라.
아군이 당했습니다.
내 이름은 이즈리얼 이즈.
비멸의 축새 따위. 죽어라. 죽어서 내 것이 되어라. 허약한 육신을 벗고 차가운 강철에서 안식을 얻으리라.
포탑이 파괴되었습니다.
빛의 몸을 숨긴 겁쟁이들. 내가
아군이 당했습니다.
선사해.
적이 학살 중입니다. 학살 중입니다.
의지가 강철에 다시 깃들었다.
전장의 지배자.
공포에 떨든 발밑에 조아리든 상관없다. 어차피 날 섬기게 될 테니. 육신의 속박은 강철로 해방한다.
전장의 화신. 제압되었습니다. 제압되었습니다.
배은망덕한 자에겐 폭군이요
적을 처치했습니다.
실컷 빌어라. 신도 너를 구해줄 수는 없으니 산 자의 소음과 죽은 자의 침묵 내가 지배한다.
적을 처치했습니다. 아군이 당했습니다. 적을 처치했습니다. 더블킬. 아군이 당했습니다.
저항하든 굴복하든 네 끝.
적에게 당했습니다. 포탑을 파괴했습니다. 학살 중입니다. 청할 때도 있습니다.
비명의 족쇄 따위
포탑이 파괴되었습니다.
지치는 법이 없지.
아군이 당했습니다. 제압되었습니다. 제압되었습니다. 아군이 당했습니다. 적을 도저히 막을 수 없습니다. 적 더블킬.
내 의지가 강철에 다시 깃들었다.
포탑이 파괴되었습니다. 포탑이 파괴되었습니다. 아군이 되었습니다.
간판이나 해.
끊임없이 훔친 그녀의 심장이라.
적이 미쳐날뛰고 있습니다. 아군이 당했습니다. 포탑이 파괴되었습니다. 포탑이 파괴되었습니다. 억제기가 파괴되었습니다.
죽음은 날 막을 수 없지. 넌 이미 죽었다.
적을 도저히 막을 수 없습니다.
필멸자의 운명이다.
포탑이 파괴되었습니다.
절망하고
아군이 당했습니다. 적이 전장을 지배하고 있습니다. 포탑이 파괴되었습니다. 억제기가 파괴되었습니다. 포탑을 파괴했습니다. 포탑이 파괴되었습니다.
의미 없는 돌덩이.
포탑이 파괴되었습니다. 소환사 한 명이 게임을 종료했습니다. 패배.